Good day to you. I'm Susan Pierce, a naturopathic life coach, and you are watching Eden's Living TV. We have our resident naturopath doctor, Dr. Delane Graytop, here today. We're going to talk about epigenetics and the environmental illnesses that you hear all the buzzword.
Yes.
What do you mean about environmental illness? What is that?
So that's a group category basically of, think about your environment and what you come into contact with every day. You come into contact with stuff in your home, you come into contact in the workplace, in the air, getting to the workplace, things like that. So things that are in your environment can cause chronic illness. And so when they cause chronic illness, that's kind of the broad scope of environmental medicine. So think mold, heavy metals, pesticides, things you ingest, things you put on your skin. They've now found carcinogens in some sunscreens, things like that. So it's things that are in your environment that you're putting in your body, on your body, or breathing in that can cause disease.
So what's the best way to test if you have environmental? I know mold, your personal story, which
Yes.
go ahead and you'd be glad to share that with us.
Yes.
But how do you test for all this to know if you have a chronically ill environment to live in or work in?
Well, that is kind of tricky. That's a multifaceted question, actually. My story, the reason I got into environmental illness, obviously, and you know this, is that I had a mold exposure last year that caused me to be disabled. And I was actually on a walker and could not get up, and not even off this chair. Actually, I would not even have been able to stand up off this chair. And that turned out to be a mold exposure. We went through every single possible test it could have been. I actually thought it was bone cancer. I had so much pain, and it turned out to be a mold exposure that ate through my joints and all of my joints and ate the mitochondria of my muscle. So I had no muscle strength to even lift up a cell phone or hold up a hairbrush. No makeup for 2 years.
Wow.
Yes, not my favorite. And no heels because I couldn't walk. I was on a walker. And it was overlooked by kind of the standard medical field. Mm-hmm. They did note that I needed a hip surgery from a long ago injury that I'd had for years, which I knew I was eventually going to end up. But what I ended up having to have was 2 hip surgeries, and I also going to have 2 knee surgeries, because of the damage of mold.
What is it about mold? Is it the
mycotoxins?
Mycotoxins.
So mold, there's many species, as we know, and black mold is the most well-known. Deadly, exactly. But epigenetics, if we're to say a little bit about that, epigenetics is basically your DNA and what is going on in your DNA, and do you have any mutations? We call them SNPs in our world, which stands for single nucleotide polymorphism, which means basically when you get something from your mother's side and father's side, if you have a mutation in one side or the other, or both, it can cause a problem in your health. For me, my mutation is the mold one that cannot detox mold. So when I come in contact with any species of mold, I cannot detox it. So my body automatically stores it in fat. So I start gaining fat.
How much weight did you gained a significant amount?
100 pounds in a year.
And never changed your eating habits?
Never changed my eating habits.
And all the doctors thought, go home, get on a diet, it's in your head.
Yes, absolutely.
That's the allopathic way.
Yes, and I actually did a speech on it recently about that, and it was called "Thank You Fat for Saving My Life," because it has happened to me 4 times in my life, and now I know after this last experience that each time it was a mold exposure for me to gain a huge amount of weight in a very small amount of time. So weight, as I always say when I'm with you and on these shows, is a symptom. It's a symptom of something, and people make it a diagnosis. And so for me to say I gained 100 pounds in a year with no diet change, and we all know that I eat non-GMO, organically.
It wasn't you gaining it.
Yes, absolutely. There was a problem. And basically my body was protecting my vital organs from the mold attacking. And so mold not only is the problem, but also when you kill the mold, if it's improperly killed, or if you kill it and you do not remove it properly, what is left over is what we call mycotoxins, which are the microfragments of it even if you kill it in your body, you will have the mycotoxins in your body. Wow. So you need to get those out. You need to get those out of your environment, out of your body, or you stay sick.
Because you can't live in a moldy house without having health problems.
No, you do, absolutely.
You can't. You had to get rid of everything. Your clothes,
actually did, yes.
Your books,
yes.
Your furniture.
Books. Thousands of dollars in medical school books,
wow.
yes, and furniture, clothing, everything. About 90% of my things. Everything that couldn't be treated with ammonia could not come into the new house, actually.
How was it that you found it was mold detox? I mean, seriously, how did you nitty-gritty look down and go, wow,
well,
this is mold exposure?
Well, you know that I'm very into blood work
right.
myself,
right.
and so I was testing everything. I had such joint pain, I thought it was Lyme. And so we were going.
You found out you have?
Well, yes, I did definitely have Lyme underneath, which is a very common thing for people who have the SNPs,
that's a
as we call
issue,
them.
Isn't it? Isn't that usually Bartonella?
Bartonella is a co-infection. Borrelia is the actual Lyme infection. Bartonella is a co-infection. There's also Babesia and a few others. So when your immune system gets low, whereas I had Lyme, I had a BV reactivation, and then I was exposed to mold. So it was like a threefold punch. And I don't have the detox mechanisms to get rid of the stuff.
And you lost 2 animals in this process.
I did.
They're a whole lot more sensitive to mold.
Yes.
They're kind of like the canary.
Kind of like the canary, yes. And they were also misdiagnosed.
What did they think they had?
They thought the cat had a thyroid disorder, hyperthyroid, and they thought the dog had atypical melanoma with a growth with no melanocytes. So not melanoma with no melanocytes, obviously. So they were also misdiagnosed, as well as I was. They were prepping me for surgery, and I just kept running blood work until I figured out what was going on. And what it turned out to be was the Lyme wasn't the most prevalent problem for me. Mm-hmm. The mold was the most prevalent problem. So I tested a level, it's called C4A, which is acute phase reactant of your immune system. And when you have a toxic exposure to something, it will raise. And so
is that a blood test?
It's a blood test.
Blood test right here?
It's a blood test. And so for me, the range is 2,800. And when I first tested it, mine was 31,000.
Wow.
Which is
normal is 2,800.
2,800.
And you were at 31,000?
Yes.
No wonder your body was putting on so much weight.
And bloating and face bloating, and couldn't fit on my rings, couldn't fit on my shoes. It was all over body wide.
And then you had really chronically fatigued because you had no muscle strength.
No muscle strength because the mitochondria was being affected. And then when they set me up for surgery, they do the pre-surgical blood work, which is a standard panel. Mine came out perfectly. However, I checked the C4A level again.
Thank goodness.
To see where I was at, and it had doubled to 67,000.
What made that double so much more
Well,
exposure?
when I couldn't walk, I had a practice in Scarsdale, New York, and one day in Manhattan. So I was 5 days in Westchester and 1 day in Manhattan. I couldn't walk, so I stopped my practices because I was disabled, and I was sitting at home. Well, the home was moldy. And so for me to be out of there 6 days a week, it was kind of helping me. And then when I basically stayed in because I was becoming disabled, it got that much worse.
And that short of time, too.
It was within 3 months.
And you gained your weight within, what, a year?
1 year.
6 months to a year?
1 year, yeah. 100 pounds
and it wasn't your thyroid problem, it was mold.
Yes, it wasn't hormones, it wasn't thyroid, it wasn't any of the things that people normally... I would have had to, I added it up, I would have had to have eaten an extra on top of what I normally ate, 402,000 extra calories
to get that much weight.
That much weight that quickly.
Well, what did it make you feel like when your allopathic doctors were going, this is just hormones, this is just you gaining weight? I mean, they dismissed you.
They didn't even say that. The first one I went into, I actually went in for an x-ray because I cannot order my own x-rays. So I wanted an x-ray to see what was going on. My hip was hurting even more than usual. And the first one I went into, I said I had Lyme, and this had happened, and I had progressively become disabled. And he said, I just don't see anything wrong with you. You're kind of a medical mystery. I don't see anything wrong besides obesity.
Medical mystery.
Yes, he only saw obesity. And I walked in on 2 canes and had to have help onto the table.
Wow.
And I was thinking, I've seen fat people walk. So
Yeah.
I feel like maybe that's not the problem.
It's not in my head, I promise.
And actually,
I
the
hope you
size I
fired him.
was,
Did you
and
fire that doctor?
I did.
Good. The doctor works for you. You have that ability to fire
Absolutely,
doctors.
be your own advocate. If anything, please trust your own intuition and be your own advocate.
Because you do know your own body.
You do.
know
You
when
know
your body is
better
off.
than
Yes.
a doctor
And the
knows
doctors
your
are
body.
supposed to work for you.
That's true.
They're supposed to work for you.
So I went into urgent care the next week, and I said, my hip hurts. And that's all I said. And they said, oh, well, x-ray it. I said, great. Turned out my leg bone was flattened. So
The mold had eaten through your joints.
pretty much eaten through my joints.
So we're bone
and
on bone at this
bone on
point.
bone. He was like, I don't know how you're walking. And I said, I'm not.
Yeah, I'm on a cane.
I'm on a walker, two canes.
You know how sad that makes me of how
Yeah.
many people, first of all, I had the shame of gaining weight because
Absolutely.
I was 267 at one point.
Absolutely.
Lost 150 pounds, and I felt invisible. People did not see me.
That is the name
Yes.
of my documentary, as Invisible Me, just about that, because that is what happens. You
People
become
don't
invisible.
even see. Yeah, the people
be-
don't see.
the bigger
Just
you
a
get,
big,
the more
And
invisible
they
you
look
get.
at you like you're a fat slob. Shame on you. You
Like
fat
you're lazy.
eater.
Like you're lazy and
In
you're
there.
and you're
And that's
driving through
hard
McDonald's.
emotionally. And I knew you when you were walking through your mold
Yeah.
and your Lyme.
Yeah.
And it got to a very dark place at one time. You
It did.
were.
It
You want
did.
to
The
share what
mold-
you were planning, or do
Well, you know, the mold does affect your psyche. It affects your
Yes.
brain, and it can hit any area. Some people have seizures. Some people have mold grow into their heart or lungs and have things like that, and also can cause depression and
Lots of
suicidal
anxiety.
thoughts,
Yeah, suicidal
anxiety,
tendencies.
all kinds of things like that, which are not my typical
cheery self?
personality.
Right.
I wouldn't say cheery, but yes,
Yes.
I'm somewhat
Yeah, but
New Yorker.
I remember at one point you were hopeless. You were like,
Yes,
I'm ready to
there's
check
a
out. If I can't get on
definitely-
top of this, I'm not going to sit here and suffer.
I was in 10 out of 10 pain every single day.
And pain twist you.
And yes, and when you don't have any quality of life and can't even get up off your own couch to go anywhere or to do anything, I learned about every delivery service there, grocery delivery, everything. But I couldn't even help clean up after the cat or the
And
dog
you lived
or
by yourself.
anything.
How did you do this? I mean, how did you make it through? You had nurses come in at one point.
After the hip surgery I did, but no, not.
I don't know
I
how
was
you made it.
actually pretty much housebound for a good 6 months while we figured this out. When I retested the C4A and it was 67,000, I sent those results to my surgeon, hoping that he would do the right thing and look it up and see what.
Right.
I didn't explain anything, but you know, when you see a 2,800 and a 67,000,
Something's going on.
something's going on. So he fortunately looked it up and said, we're not going to do surgery right now. You are
Yeah, you
being
gotta
attacked
get-
by
yes.
something. And he said, what do you think it is? And I said,
Well, what
"It's
did you
mold."
do when you figure out that this mold pathogen
Yep.
is coming in and taking two of your animals,
Yes.
put 100 pounds on you, pretty much taking residence in your head
Made
and your
me
whole,
disabled.
made you disabled, which is your whole worth. You went to medical school 4 years,
Mm-hmm.
have all this training, and yet you were sick. So what's the first step?
The first step is to move out of the environment,
Okay,
flat out.
flat out.
Absolutely.
Move out.
You cannot, if you are a person who gets sick from mold, people do remediate, but there are few and far between companies that know how to remediate properly. And if at all possible, moving out of the
As you said, if
environment.
they do it wrong, it can actually create more pathogens.
That's correct.
Which could take over your body faster.
People will
And your
spray it
bo-
with bleach, they won't wipe it off, and then as soon as it dries, the mycotoxins are airborne, and now you're breathing it.
Wow.
It is extremely deadly if you are sensitive to it.
Okay, so
And mine was not black mold, remember, mine was standard aspergillus.
Wow. Just think if you had been in black mold, you'd be dead.
And when I was there in Arizona, I was in black mold, which was another weight gain during medical school, which is when I stopped to film my
I don't know
my
how your brain
documentary.
can handle that, as much fog that you get with mold.
Yes, there's a lot of brain
and learning
fog.
in medical school.
Yes.
With no sleep.
Yes, insomnia is another.
Yeah,
another,
insomnia is in
another-
hormone and fluctuations. And
Absolutely,
sleep, yeah. Sleep,
absolutely.
you can't find sleep when you have mold.
No, you absolutely can't. It's
and you
very
and also appetite's affected. You're not
insomnia.
hungry, are
not
you?
hungry. Wasn't eating. Gaining weight
Wasn't
still.
even gaining weight.
Yes. Yeah.
Something's
so
wrong.
The common denominators for my 4 mold exposures now that I know were joint pain, anxiety, weight gain, and depression. And those were common in all of them. And I can think back to each 4 exposures, one in high school, one in college, one in medical school, and then this one.
So you were really getting back to the root cause all the way back to in high school even.
All the way back. And I believe that's what sent me into medical school, you know, as we know. That was not my trajectory.
Yes, there's no accidents in life.
I was going into film studies and public speaking, and it was my own journey that drew me to naturopathic medicine and has effectively
saved your life and saved
my life many times.
Saved my life too. That's why I'm an advocate for naturopathic medicine.
Absolutely.
It's the only way to go. So after you've figured out the culprit, and you moved out.
Yes. So I moved out on a walker. I threw out.
Oh, that was fun.
Yes, that was. I did not do much of the heavy lifting, as we can see, since I couldn't even lift a hairbrush. But everything, the truck had to pull up to my house. We had to pull everything out onto the driveway and ammonia treat everything. The only things that we could bring. And then bring them in.
Right, so you detoxed your environment and got out of the really bad, but how do you start detoxing your body? How do you do that safely?
Yes, so there's a number of ways to do it. What you need to do, number one, is kill the mold. So that is the first way.
Nice antifungal?
An antifungal, and you can use a pharmaceutical antifungal, you can use an herbal antifungal.
Herbal
you can use either, correct?
A little herbal.
I started out with the
like Aspergillus or something like that. What would
Aspergillus is the mold. No, the antifungal oregano oil does it. Black walnut. There are a lot of fungal killers. Caprylic acid.
Wormwood, if I'm not mistaken.
Wormwood is an antiparasitic, but yes. I personally started with fluconazole because I was on a time crunch to
67,000 count. Yeah.
My brain was getting a little foggy, and so the pharmaceutical way would be fluconazole and something called cholestyramine, which is an actual bile sequestrant. But what it does is it will, once you kill the mold, it will bind to the mycotoxin and endotoxins.
So like chlorella or spirulina, they're binders. When you detox and you're juicing,
yes,
you're supposed to use a binder, guys. If you go to any health coach or doctor and they get you on a water fast or fasting and they don't get you binders, you need to get a new coach or doctor.
This is true. You really do need to take out the toxins that are being dumped into your blood when you are detoxing. And so cholestyramine is, again, the pharmaceutical, but you can also use activated charcoal. Chlorella, always good to put on board. I definitely use chlorella with mine. I also I use both activated charcoal and chlorella. I still am using activated charcoal because
is that topical activated or ingest?
Ingest it. And as I lose weight, more mold gets put into my bloodstream, so we continue to use the binders. Even though I don't need to kill any more mold because I'm no longer in a moldy environment. But I did 3 different months of
detoxing,
killing mold and detoxing, yes.
And you also did some baths, bentonite clay, and
I did bentonite clay baths, yes, and Epsom salt is also a really good one. Epsom salt, bentonite clay. Bentonite clay you can also ingest if it's in an aqueous solution. That is also a great binder for things when it comes out, and that will help with if you're trying to get heavy metals out, if you're trying to get any of the environmental toxins that you're trying to get out. And the misnomer is that if you just kill it, then you're going to be okay. And that's not
true.
The truth. Because what happens is you kill it, and first of all, it'll secrete an endotoxin because it's dying.
Right.
So yeast does the same thing when you have a yeast infection, things like that. An endotoxin, that goes into your blood. The dead thing breaks up into little mycotoxins, which are
more
microscopic, yes, and they can go into tissues and they can go everywhere.
Into joints,
and absolutely everywhere. And so, fortunately for me, and when I say fat saved my life, it did not go.
Literally,
it was
saved your life.
On its way to my brain because I was starting to forget medical terms, and I knew that it was getting really bad when it was at 67,000 because I couldn't remember. Instead of saying cholecystitis for gallstones, I would be like, that's
that recall
something
thing
to do with the gallbladder.
Yeah, that's horrible when you have cognitive fog and you know the information, but you can't pull it out of your brain. I have fibromyalgia and I'm very familiar. I wake up and I'm like, where did I put my phone? Where did I put my car keys? It's very frustrating. A lot of that is a lack of nutrition.
It is.
A lot of lack of nutrition. So did you nutritionally start flooding in a lot of things after the what did you eat?
I started while I was in the moldy home because I didn't know what was going on, but I did a lot of I do some juicing, but I like it whole foods better, so I like to blend it all together. So I was doing apple with ginger, celery, dark greens, things like that. Stuff that was already broken down, easier for my body to digest.
And cilantro too, probably. Cilantro's a good cleaner.
Yeah, I have the gene that makes it taste like soap, so I use parsley
Okay,
myself.
you do parsley, okay.
I'm not a cilantro girl, but yes, some people have the gene that makes it, not taste good.
Well, let's talk about the genes and epigenetics and genetic testing to see if you have little snippets of problems. So what is epigenetics?
It's a wonderful new section of medicine that I think that prior, we used to blame everything on genetics. My
Grandpa had
Grandpa had
cancer, so I'm going to have cancer.
Yes, Grandpa had high cholesterol. Grandpa was a type 2 diabetic.
We call that don't wear the jersey.
Yes.
Don't wear the jersey. You're not the disease.
Exactly.
You are a symptom.
Correct.
There's only two reasons why you're sick. You're toxic, which is inflammation,
right,
and malnourishment.
That's right. And so when we blame things on genetics, one, did you grow up in the same house eating the same things?
Exactly.
Maybe that's why you're type 2 diabetic.
Right.
Or, there's not all these genes that are saying, oh, you're going to have high cholesterol, you're going to have this, you're going to have that. You can look at a family pattern, which we do. But we used to think of DNA as hard evidence, like, okay, my grandpa had a stroke, so I am bound for a stroke.
It has to be gene expression, right?
Right. You have to turn it on.
Turn it on like a key.
That's right. So it's your environment and what you put in your body.
So that's the environmental toxicity part of the DNA.
That's right. That will turn on or off your genetic SNP. So if you know them, if you know what you are lacking in and what you have trouble with, you can, what we call biohacking. That's kind of the new field. Biohacking is knowing where your body needs help. And,
who was the author of what is the new gene that you showed me your book?
Oh, that's, it's called, what is the name
Dirty
of it?
Genes.
Dirty Genes, yes, Dr. Ben Lynch.
Dr. Ben Lynch.
Yes.
He's a biohacker. He's teaching.
He's a wonderful author. It's a great book for lay people. I think it's a wonderful book. He's phenomenal, very intelligent. What I do for genes, personally, genetic testing can be very, very expensive. And so I try to get my patients to do it in an easy way that is less expensive. So you can go through one of the ancestry sources, right? Like 23andMe or Ancestry.com, things like that. I personally did 23andMe because they will not give you all of the medical stuff, but they will give you the raw genetic data that they have collected, and then you can upload that into a genetics website where someone like me could interpret it for you. So that would give you, because they don't want, obviously the lay people cannot understand how to interpret raw genetic data. So we put it into a site, some sort of a NutriHacker type site, and then they will lay out for us where our genetic SNPs are, the polymorphisms. And what you look at is you say, so for me, people get B12 shots and they're like, oh, I have so much energy, this is great. All through medical school, I was kind of like, doesn't do anything for me.
Doesn't do a thing for me.
No clue what you guys are talking about. I don't get any energy. I don't know what's happening. Well, my epigenetics tells me that I can't break down methylcobalamin, which is what they use for the injection. I need the further broken down one into hydroxycobalamin. So once I started using that, then I was like, oh, B vitamins do help you.
Give me the energy. Your B vitamins are your energy vitamins.
They are, and they nourish the nervous system, so it's really good for the nervous system. And so you find out things like, turmeric. Everyone loves turmeric, right? It is great, it's anti-inflammatory, blah, blah, blah. I had so much pain. I'll do a turmeric IV, I'll do a curcumin IV, whatever. I would do anything. It didn't touch it. What did my epigenetics say? I can't digest it. I cannot absorb it.
No wonder.
Completely useless to me. So these are the things, these are little biohacks that, like everyone says, turmeric's the best thing ever. You should take it. And I say, it does nothing for me.
Right.
People say, it's anti-inflammatory.
That's why it's so important to go to a naturopath doctor that really looks at your mind, body, and soul as an individual person. They're not going to give you a Band-Aid approach. They're going to get to the root cause.
That's right.
They're going to peel back the layers, see where the traumas and the stressors, and then also teach you and empower you how to take control of your own body, because you do have the intuition that something is wrong.
And, just one particular SNP that I will tell you that's becoming pretty popular that people know about right now is the MTFHR, which means you cannot basically break down folic acid.
I can't do it. I can't break down folic acid.
Right.
Yeah.
Many of us have it. And there's two forms of it. If you have the 677 one, you are more apt towards stroke and cardiac event.
Oh, great.
And if you have the 1298, you just cannot process or methylate your B vitamins. So either way, you have to add methylated B vitamins into your into your
You've
food
got to
source
get it some
somehow.
way.
Yes.
And our food source has been so depleted. Our soil
Absolutely.
system is so depleted.
Absolutely.
That's why I preach organic, organic, organic,
100%.
organic.
EWG.org, they're clean 15, dirty dozen every year.
People don't realize, like strawberries, if you eat modified strawberries or
Oh
what
my
you buy,
gosh.
17 times Roundup, glyphosate.
96 chemicals they found on strawberries.
96 chemicals. And you think you're eating fruit being healthy.
You're eating pesticides
You're
with
eating
the
pesticides.
side of fruit.
Yeah, it's a little side of fruit. And the pesticides, people don't, we talk about environmental illnesses. If you claim.
That is something.
Yeah, if you claim, like I'm a big believer, if I work with you in 101, we're going to change your laundry detergent. We're going to get it organic. If you
That's
do
right.
toothpaste, we don't do fluoride in our water or toothpaste.
That's right.
We go natural toothpaste. Makeup. Lead, a lot of lead content in
absolutely.
over-the-counter commercial makeup. The higher the price,
Lotions.
the more lotions even.
Lotions.
And lead content. All these environmental. If you're cleaning your house with chemicals
breathing
and
it
going
in.
barefoot or letting your babies or your animal walk,
Absolutely.
that's absorbing immediately into your skin.
Absolutely.
Anything you put on and in your skin.
Paints.
Toxic,
Paint fumes.
yes, paint fumes. I
VOCs.
just renovated my house. All right, Dr. Delane, we really appreciate you coming, our resident
Absolutely.
naturopath here. Let our viewers know if they want to consult, if you want to go get your genetic testing and upload it for Dr. Graytop to look at, how in the world do they get a hold of you?
So Integrative Medical Consulting is my website, and they can always find me on there. They can find me on Instagram at DocBodyBeauty. You can find me, Dr. Delane Graytop at Gmail. Any of those, you can contact me. You can always contact me through you. You always know how to get a
y'all
hold.
can contact me
She
through.
can always find me.
But she can Skype. We can do all kind of
I
Skype
do.
lessons, and you do
Yes.
all kind of protocols and
And I do
consults.
things around the country because I find that people will miss, now that I'm so familiar with mold and toxic things, doctors will miss it, and I can tell by the signs immediately.
Yes.
And I'm just
so
like,
if you have mold or Lyme disease or autoimmunity, this is the doctor for you. And she's my own personal doctor. We've gotten her in from New York, flying down here to Georgia, a little southern
Yes.
hospitality. But we really appreciate this. And I wish the best for you.
Always.
I know you're going to be dancing and thin and beautiful and
I'm
happy.
already dancing again,
You're already
waiting on the
dancing.
knees.
Remember, she was on a walker. So thank you so much, Dr.
absolutely.
Graytop.
Always, always.
Appreciate you.